If you're switching to real foods from kibble or canned food, the first thing you'll likely notice is smaller, firmer, less smelly poops, better overall digestion. You'll see a cleaner mouth. You may also see more energy and a sleeker build, better coat and healthier skin. Eventually, less allergies and sensitivities. Now, these are all visible changes that reflect health improvements all throughout the body. It's also common to see positive changes in behavior, a calmer, happier demeanor, better ability to learn. Researchers at the University of Helsinki in Finland conducted a survey of over 600 dogs who were switched to raw foods. Over half of the dogs started with either skin or digestive problems, and they are just as common anywhere you go. 145 dogs went in with digestive problems. 94% saw huge improvements or total recovery after switching to raw food. 206 went in with skin issues. 91% of them saw improvement or recovery. 38 had eye issues, and 88% of those saw significant to total improvement. Next up, the folks at the University of Helsinki turned their minds to allergies. They did a head-to-head comparison, raw versus dry food. They were looking at one specific health marker, homocysteine. Dogs suffering from allergies or an immune system that overreacts and causes allergy symptoms have more of it in their blood. It's an indicator that things aren't right, and it's one that we can measure. Dogs eating a dry diet had almost 10 times the homocysteine levels of raw-fed dogs. When the raw-fed dogs were switched to a dry diet, their levels shot up 5 times. When the dry-fed dogs were switched to a raw diet, their levels dropped 5 times. Paints a pretty clear picture. Raw-fed dogs suffer from far less inflammation. They suffer from less allergy, skin, and digestive issues. Over 90% of kibble-fed dogs who are suffering from these issues see big improvements or complete recovery by switching to raw food. Now, these are some of the most common issues our dogs and cats are facing, all improved by feeding them a species-appropriate food. For more information from the University of Helsinki, check out their website, Dog Risk. A lot of their work is early studies and surveys, but it opens the door for some of the research that really needs to be done. Raw foods may also be linked to a lower risk of developing certain cancers. Dogs suffer from many of the same cancers as humans and have some of the highest cancer rates of any mammal. In fact, their cancer rate is 5 times higher than ours. There's some early research that suggests that good food may be an important piece of the puzzle. A group of Scottish Terriers were fed raw vegetables 3 times a week in place of some of their normal food. Now, Scottish Terriers are very prone to a specific type of bladder cancer, and the dogs who received raw leafy greens as part of their diet saw up to a 90% reduction in the size and occurrence of these bladder tumors. It's long been known that fruits and vegetables play a role in preventing cancer in humans. They contain a wealth of phytonutrients and other compounds that the body needs. And now we know that dogs can benefit from some of the same foods.
So fresh food feeding does not have to be all or nothing. There are great studies that show that even adding 25% fresh food on top of whatever you're already feeding makes a huge difference. It literally can extend your pet's life by 2 to 3 years just by adding some fresh food into that bowl. So if you can't go with totally fresh food feeding, at least get some fresh things in there. Those toppers that I talk about a lot, sardines, eggs, dark leafy greens, mushrooms, berries, great antioxidants. Those are the kind of things that when added to the bowl are going to make a huge difference in your pet's health. So if that's where you start, that's a great starting place.
The nutrients found naturally in raw fruits and veggies can help increase bone and muscle health, help balance the immune system, protect the organs, and so much more. This is one of the biggest benefits of a raw, fresh, real food diet. It takes years to study individual nutrients and learn about their beneficial properties. and then even longer to find a way to add that to a processed diet. When you create a recipe from real, nutrient-dense, fresh ingredients, all of the benefits are already there in every single bite. We don't have to wait for science to try and catch up to nature. These real ingredients are what life developed eating over billions of years. The lack of heat processing in raw food can also help, as the extreme heat used to make processed foods can create potential carcinogens and destroy or denature many of the awesome natural properties of real foods. Some of the ingredients in processed foods can be cooked up to 5 times. That significantly reduces those natural benefits if it doesn't completely eliminate them. And time again, we see the benefits of replacing these processed diets with fresh, real foods. A guide dog group in Australia switched all 216 of their dogs from a processed food diet to a fresh, raw food diet. The first year alone, they reduced their veterinary bills by 82%. Our final story comes from the Wildlife Science Center in Minnesota. The Wildlife Science Center is a wolf relocation and research center that was opened in 1976 and used to study wolves. In 1990, Peggy Callahan took over and switched the entire population of wolves from a scientific kibble to a raw food diet. The changes she saw were amazing.
The Wildlife Science Center was called the Wolf Project, and it was run by the federal government from 1976 to 1990. And I joined the team in 1985, and it was an interesting thing because they were wolves taken from the wild, but they were fed a dry kibble, and it was kind of an animal laboratory kind of approach to things where you fed a consistent, homogeneous diet. But the federal money ran out in 1990, and so my husband and I took over the facility and created a nonprofit in 1991, and we pursued our dream of taking these guys off of the kibble and putting them onto what was a plethora of available roadkill deer. So the transition was amazing and immediate. The first obvious things that we saw were the change in the stool quality and stool volume. The behavior of the animals was different because it was enriching to be able to pull on the bodies and eat the entire animal, and the interaction that they had with each other over the animals was a completely different process. It made eating more fun and more interesting and more stimulating. And then their coats just started to change. They went from a kind of a brittle dry to a really luxurious, soft touch. And what's interesting about wolves is they don't smell like dogs. They smell, and they're in good health, they smell very perfumey. So they got this light, perfumey smell to them, which was absolutely characteristic as eating a healthy diet. So it took only a year or two for us to see the wolves that we thought were in good weight put on different kinds of weight, like muscle mass, and they started just getting bigger, and they passed that on to offspring, so that colleagues of ours that have been working with us in the past said, well, what are you doing differently? Because your animals are 10 to 15% bigger than they were. And it really was just as simple as taking them off of a kibble and putting them on a raw diet, a real animal diet. And the whole animal, not just bits and pieces, the whole animal. So it was a remarkable change, and one that I wished we'd done before, but I was thrilled at the results. The life expectancy has definitely changed for these guys. Wolves are longer lived than dogs anyway, but the wolves that we had on kibble were dying between 12 to 13 years, like a dog. But these guys, we can expect easily 18 to 20 years out of them right now.
The evidence for feeding fresh, raw foods is all around us and growing by the day. The perfect food for dogs and cats will always be a controversial topic, but we believe that the very best choices are the natural foods all around us.